It is so very sad to see our kids hungry. But what can we do? We have nothing else to sell but our labor, and no one wants that now.
It's all about jobs, losing them and protecting them. Next on Global Pulse. A comparison of how broadcasters around the world are covering the global jobs crisis. What began as a global financial crisis has grown into a global jobs crisis. A United Nations report says 50 million jobs could vanish in 2009. The crisis is pitting workers against workers. The BBC followed a strike in Britain against the use of foreign labor.
They gathered from before first light to protest against the use of foreign workers instead of local workers.
You don't have to go across to Europe to bring people in to do skilled jobs when the skilled men are here. And they've been doing it for years.
Even countries that at first were considered safe saw jobs melt away, as South Africa's SABC reported.
Last year, most economists and institutions such as the IMF were predicting that countries in Africa might escape the full impact of global financial meltdown. But as economic activity continues to slow down, all forecasts are now changing.
We're seeing in some areas, for instance, mining activity is going down. Workers are being laid off. And that will have, in turn, knock-on effects on the entire society.
Nations are forming strategies to stop the loss of jobs and to protect the ones they have. In Russia, one tactic is cheap rent, as reported by Russia Today.
Dolomant motherboards drive trains, satellites and even Russian missiles. It's a small company making world-class equipment, the type of economy President Medvedev says Russia must be based on. But that's not being backed by money.
Innovation is expensive. If they don't fund the research centres for us, our workers will leave for Motorola and Siemens. In fact, they're leaving already.
There are signs the state is responding.
Companies which rent premises from the state will pay just 40% of the market rate this year, 60% next year, and 80% in year 3.
Another strategy, protectionism. Nations making laws protecting their workforce over others. South Korea's KBS saw the danger. Al Jazeera questions a controversial deal in France.
Under President Nicolas Sarkozy's new plan, the French state would lend Peugeot, Citroën and Renault $4 billion each if they promise not to shut French plants or sack French workers. But that's causing concern, not just at French-owned plants in places like the Czech Republic and Spain, but also in Brussels. The European Commission suspects EU rules against protectionism might be broken.
Widespread trade protection is a great danger to South Korea, whose economy depends on exports. The World Trade Organization says 16 countries have introduced 19 new trade protection clauses since November 2008, when the financial crisis intensified. China is in a trade war with India, which has banned imports of Chinese toys. Russia has raised an import duty for automobiles by 5%.
South Korea wasn't alone in seeing the threat of protectionism. China's CCTV and Germany's Deutsche Welle reported on the blunt warnings coming from China and the European Union.
EU Commission President José Manuel Barroso said member states must act jointly to face the crisis.
Some think that retrenching within their own group, their own region, their own country is the right response. But this carries the risk of unilateral reactions leading to a vicious downward spiral.
The spokesperson for the Commerce Ministry, Yao Jian, said that protectionism will further dampen the already tough situation. He said China is calling on governments worldwide to give up measures favoring local goods, saying it will hinder any recovery from the global economic slump.
But behind the bickering over protectionism are real people, like a father in India who migrated to New Delhi in search of a job.
There are more than 250 of us who stay here. Because of the economic slowdown, we are not finding any jobs to do. We work for 2 days and then sit at home for 5. Sometimes we don't even get paid for the work we do. We feel saddened by the fact that we have moved here from so far to find work, and yet there is none.
For Global Pulse, this is Erin Coker.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.